Our final piece tonight is Where a Single Footprint Lasts 1,000 Years. This is composed by Michael Holohan, and it's performed by Donal O'Kelly, actor and playwright, with the wonderful musicians that you've already heard tonight. They are Brian Dunning on woodwind, Simon O'Dwyer on Bronze Age horns and percussion, Breifine Holohan on guitar, and Michael Holohan keyboards and percussion. Where a Single Footprint Lasts 1,000 Years is a piece of music theatre composed and devised by Michael Holohan. The texts in this work are adapted from the personal diaries of Shackleton, and the poetic extracts are by the New Zealand poet Bill Manhire, who spent a period of time in the Antarctic. The composer attempts to evoke the eerie sound world of the Antarctic, mostly by means of acoustic instruments. The listener's ear is drawn to the unusual timbres of the spring drum, gongs, rain sticks, triangles, bamboo rattles, Tibetan prayer cups, the various Bronze Age horns, conch shells, the swan bone whistle, vocalizations, and different drums. These timbres are combined with discrete electronic sounds to create the music of the bleak Antarctic landscape. The work was commissioned by the National Concert Hall to commemorate the centenary of a lecture given by Sir Ernest Shackleton on December the 14th, 1909, in the Aula Maxima of the National University, Earlsfort Terrace, here where we are now, the present National Concert Hall.
We were the fools who could not rest in the dull earth we left behind, but burned with passion for the south and drank strange frenzy from its wind. Men go out into the void spaces of the world for various reasons. Some are actuated simply by a love of adventure. Some have the keen thirst for scientific knowledge, and others again are lured away from the trodden paths by the lure of little voices, the mysterious fascination of the unknown. I think that in my own case it was a combination of these factors that determined me to try my fortune once again in the frozen south. I seemed to vow to myself that someday I would go to the region of ice and snow, and go on till I reached one of the poles of the earth, the end of the axis upon which this great round ball turns. The final preparations at Littleton during the month of December involved a great deal of work, but by December 31st, all was in readiness for a start on New Year's Day. At 4:01, orders were given to stand by the engines. At 4 p.m., the lines were cast off from the wharf and the Nimrod moved slowly ahead. Cheer after cheer broke from the watching thousands as we moved towards the harbour entrance, the Queen's flag flying at the fore and the ensign dipping farewell at the stern. The air trembled with the crash of guns, the piercing steam whistles and sirens of every steamship in the port, and a roar of cheering from the throats of the 30,000 persons who were watching the little black-hulled bark moving slowly towards the open sea. With our powerful ally, the tugboat Cunha, steaming in front, and on each side, passenger boats of the Union Company carrying some 6,000 or 7,000 persons, we moved towards the open sea, receiving such a farewell and Godspeed from New Zealand as left no man of us unmoved. The morning of January 6th broke with a fierce gale blowing. There was a mountainous sea running. And at 10 o'clock, after having made another futile attempt to get the pony called Doctor onto his legs, and finding that he had no strength of his own, I had regretfully to give orders to have him shot. The weather grew steadily worse. And by midnight, the squalls were of hurricane force. Even the mastheads of the Cunha disappeared from view at times, and the light we were steering by would only be seen for a few seconds, and would then disappear behind the mounting wall of waters that separated the two ships. A moderate estimate of the height of the waves is 42 feet. During the squalls, which were accompanied by hail and sleet, the tops of the waves were cut off by the force of the wind and flung in showers of stinging spray against our faces, drenching even the topsail yards of the Nimrod. Some 12 degrees frost. But we hardly felt the cold, for the wind was so dry. At 9:30 a.m. on the 23rd, a low, straight line appeared ahead of the ship. It was the Great Ice Barrier. After half an hour, it disappeared from view, having evidently only been raised into sight as an effect of mirage. But by 11 o'clock, the straight line stretching out east and west was in full view, and we rapidly approached it. Shortly after noon, we were within a quarter of a mile of the ice face, and exclamations of wonder and astonishment at the stupendous bulk of the barrier were drawn from those men who had not seen it before. The height of the barrier about this place ranges from 150 to 200 feet. In places, the wall is perfectly smooth, clean cut from the top to the waterline. In other places, it showed signs of vertical cracks, and sometimes deep caverns appeared, which, illuminated by the reflected light, merged from light translucent blue into the deepest sapphire. The noise resembles the roar of heavy, distant surf. Standing on the stirring ice, one can imagine it is disturbed by the breathing and tossing of a mighty giant below. The glaciers carve and thunder. Meltwater of whatever was freezing here 1,000,000 years before Christ. Mount Erebus bears a name that has loomed large in the history of polar exploration. Erebus rises from sea level to an altitude of over 13,000 feet. Looking out across the barrier, its enormous snow-clad bulk towering above the white slopes that run up from the coast. At the top of the mountain, an immense depression marks the site of the old crater, and from the side of this rises the active cone, generally marked by steam or smoke. At last, a little after 10 a.m. on March 10th, the edge of the active crater was reached, and the little party stood on the summit of Erebus, the first man to conquer perhaps the most remarkable summit in the world. We stood on the edge of a vast abyss. And at first could see neither to the bottom nor across it, on account of the huge mass of steam filling the crater and soaring upwards in a column 500 to 1,000 feet high. After a continuous, loud hissing sound lasting for some minutes, there would come from below a big, dull boom. And immediately, great globular masses of steam would rush upwards to swell the volume of the snow-white cloud that ever sways over the crater. Whiteout, a cairn in a sea of sastrugi. The blizzard repeats itself every 12 minutes, though it is mostly silence, making your ears ring, making you move along whenever you hear dogs yelping, while Mawson ties the soles of his feet back on.
October 29, 1908. A glorious day for our start. Brilliant sunshine and a cloudless sky. A fair wind from the north. Indeed, everything that could conduce to an auspicious beginning. We had breakfast at 7 a.m. And at 8:30, the sledges that the motor was to haul to the glacier tongue were taken down by the penguin rookery and over onto the rough ice. At 9:30 a.m., the supporting party started and were soon out of sight as the motor was running well. At 10 a.m., we four of the southern party started. As we left the little hut where we had spent so many months in comfort, we had a feeling of real regret that never again would we all be together there. It falls to the lot of few men to view land not previously seen by human eyes. And it was with feelings of keen curiosity, not unmingled with awe, that we watched the new mountains rise from the great unknown that lay ahead of us. Mighty peaks they were, the eternal snows at their bases. Their rough-hewn forms rising high toward the sky. As the days wore on, and mountain after mountain came into view, grimly majestic, the consciousness of our own insignificance seemed to grow upon us. We were but tiny black specks, crawling slowly and painfully across the great white plain, and bending our puny strength to the task of wresting from nature secrets preserved inviolate through all the ages.
Yet, even crossing the lake, we were walking on air, walking on water. Beyond the moat lay low chapels of ice, and each place, each palace did chime and tremble as we passed.
December 18th. The altitude tonight is 7,400 feet above sea level. This has been one of our hardest days, but worth it, because we are just on the plateau at last. All afternoon we relayed up a long snow slope, and we were hungry and tired when we reached camp. We have been saving food to make it spin out, and this increases our hunger. Each night we dream of foods. We save 2 biscuits per man per day, also pemmican and sugar, eking out our food with maize intended for the ponies that we soak with water to make it less hard. All this means that we have now 5 weeks' food, while we are about 300 geographical miles from the pole. And at the end of the day, every explorer returns to his diary, inscribing entry after entry about the drudgery of courage, sawing through ice, the absolute hush. I am, I am, I am. Symington's soup diluting the pemmican. Seal consommé on Christmas Day. January 4th. The end is in sight. We can only go for 3 more days at the most, for we are
weakening rapidly. Short food and a blizzard wind from the south at a temperature of 47 degrees of frost have plainly told us today that we are reaching our limit, for we were so done up at noon with cold that the clinical thermometer failed to register the temperature of 3 of us at 94 degrees. We should be clinically dead. We started at 7:40 a.m., leaving the depot on this great wide plateau. Pathetically small looked the bamboo, with a bit of bag sewn on as a flag to mark our stock of provisions that has to take us back to our base, 150 miles behind. We lost sight of it after half an hour and are now trusting to our footprints in the snow to guide us back to the next bamboo until we pick up our depot again. Antarctica, where a footstep lasts 1,000 years. And here we are with our 1,000 footsteps, etc. White inside the weather, white shadow, white shine, low and high, white all the time. January 9th, our last day outwards, we have shot our bolt, and the tail is 88 degrees 23 minutes south. Taking the Queen's flag and eating our scanty meal as we went, we hurried back, reaching our depot about 3 p.m. The temperature is minus 19 Fahrenheit. Fortunately, our tracks had not been obliterated by the blizzard. Indeed, they stood up, making a trail easily followed. Homeward bound at last. In his splendors, heard the text that nature renders. We had reached the naked soul of man. January 10th. The force of the gale had torn the flags from the bamboo. It has been a big risk leaving our food in the great white plain with only our sledge tracks to guide us back. January 12th. We have made 17 miles. We picked up our depot and are now following our sledge tracks to the north. January 12th. It was heavy pulling all day. We have the sail up continually. I did not sleep at all, for both my heels are frostbitten and have cracked open. February 15th, my birthday today. I was given a present of a cigarette made out of pipe tobacco and some coarse paper. It was delicious. February 16th. We are appallingly hungry. We are down to half a pannikin of half-cooked horse meat a meal and 4 biscuits a day. At night, when we come to camp, we have to lift our legs one at a time with both hands in getting into the tent. February 17th. I thought we were in for it and was not wrong. Today, we have been marching through a blinding blizzard. The harness around our weakened stomachs gives us a great deal of pain. February 23rd. While halting for a spell, the Bluff Depot miraged up. It seemed to be quite close, and the flags were waving and dancing as though to say, "Come, here I am, come and feed." It was the most cheerful sight our eyes have ever seen, for we were down to our last few biscuits. These we at once devoured. A flashing light seemed to be on the depot, and when we reached it at 4 p.m., this turned out to be a biscuit tin placed in the snow so as to catch the light of the sun. It was like a great cheerful eye twinkling at us. Now we are safe as regards food. It only remains for us to reach the ship. I climbed up on top of the depot and shouted down to those below of the glorious foods that awaited us. There were Carlsbad plums, eggs, cakes, plum puddings, gingerbread, and crystallized fruit, even fresh boiled mutton from the ship. After months of want and hunger, we now found ourselves able to have meals fit for the gods, and with appetites the gods might have envied. Another hut filled with food. There's the tongue of the Barn Glacier, a headland vanishing in storm. And here's a shingle beach with waves and seaweed, drift ice nudging the shore. And here, Here at the edge, like just another patch of snow, is a white, wave-thrown starfish. Wee, salty asterisk. All our fears vanished when, in the distance, we saw the ship miraged up. We signaled with the heliograph, and at 10 a.m. on March 1st, we were on board the Nimrod, and once more safe amongst friends. I chose life over death for me and for my friends. I believe it is in our nature to explore, to reach out into the unknown. The only true failure would be not to explore at all.
Michael Holohan, ladies and gentlemen. Very good.